Hello and welcome into this week's edition of the Hard Fowl. I am your host, Intern Joe Macheca. With me, as always, my co-host, the one, the only, Jack Veltri. Jack, a lot to talk about with Gamecock hoops. How are you doing after last night? Like, have you come down from the game yet?
How am I doing? Let's see. Let's run through the last. It's not even 24 hours yet. I got to the arena an hour before. The place was nuts. And then I didn't leave CLA till about maybe like midnight, maybe. And then I went back to my apartment right nearby, and the grind wasn't done yet. I took a little break to just hang out and just chill for a minute. But then I saw something on Twitter pop up about John Rothstein talking good about South Carolina, and I just got back to writing. I probably didn't go to bed till maybe like 2 in the morning, and then we wake up. I hop on 107.5 the game right as I wake up, still in my bed, and then it's off to baseball. And now I'm back here talking with you. So it's all a part of the lifestyle that we live, and I wouldn't trade what I do for the world. So definitely a fun 24 hours, and it makes it a lot more bearable when South Carolina's winning games, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of fun talking about wins, especially after a win like Kentucky. Colonial Life was jumping. Jack, you were there. I guess we'll lead off with this, and then we'll get into kind of the nitty gritty of the game a little bit. But what was the atmosphere like last night?
It was all right. So I talked about it this morning on 107.5, kind of because Tyler had asked me about, how would you describe it? My interpretation of it was I get to the arena and it's, I'm outside, just all black and blue, just everywhere. Kentucky, South Carolina fans, lines out the door. It was about as busy as I saw it. I get into the arena and I see all the students already in there and stuff. It's nuts. And then, I go down to eat in the press lounge area. I come back up, it gets even more busy. As soon as tip off starts, like you hear Sandstorm the first time, it's like, holy crap, it is loud in here. I mean, look, I went to school here, graduated from here, went to some women's games, and now, in my time covering South Carolina in general with Gamecock Central, I've had the opportunity to go to a handful of games over the years. I will say I don't know if I've ever seen CLA louder. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe like UConn coming here for women's, it was louder back in my day, but I don't know. I can't remember. But I would say last night was just an atmosphere unlike any other. And, I mean, there's a reason why it was that loud. I mean, students, I think Jacoby Wright put it best. I think this team was able to get the most students into the building for a game, breaking a record. So that in itself, that was awesome. And then you have your guys and girls that are already graduated, just fans in general that showed out last night, and it was just insane. And then you see the way they play after every shot. Once that first shot went in, after I think they were down like 4-0 or whatever. After that first shot went in, you just felt like, okay, every shot this team hits, it's going to be loud, and every shot that Kentucky misses, it's probably going to be louder. And then by the time the second half starts and they're up 8, Kentucky plays a little better, but then it's a 5-point game, and then just in the blink of an eye that's the best way I could describe it. The blink of an eye, it becomes a 20-point game, and by then it's like, okay, I think so. Are we still on the court or what? What's the deal here? I was here at the Jermaine Cousinard game as a student back in the day. When he hit that buzzer beater, and I thought for sure that we were going to storm the court that night. But security with their yellow rope, they did what they had to do. But then last night they do the same thing, and it's just like you see students like lining up on the aisles, and it's like, yeah, nice. Go ahead and try to stop a hurting stampede coming your way. So good on CLA for just accepting it as it is in South Carolina. Pay the $100,000 fine. How often do you get to storm the court? Like, let's be real. So
Yeah.
it was crazy. If I were a student and I were at this game and like just as a fan, I think it'd be more insane to storm the court. But having a bird's eye kind of perspective of sitting in the press row and just watching kind of all unfold that night, it was I think most can probably agree with me. It was kind of just like a magical.
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite tweet of the night regarding court storming was Harris Pastides. He tweeted, "I've paid fines for court storming before." He said, "Since I'm not paying this one, I can join in on the fun." So shout out to Harris Pastides, the former president, obviously, of USC, getting in on the action and not having to pay a dime for it. So that was fun. Jack, getting into the nitty gritty of kind of the game here. Lot to like. I mean, South Carolina shot over 50% from three. That's you called it. I mean, last week we talked about it's like, what do you have to do to win this game? You said shoot the basketball well. Not to pump your tires a little bit, but what'd you see from South Carolina offensively? And then we can get into the defense a little bit.
I take pride in hearing when I'm right, so it's okay. No, all jokes aside, here's the thing with this team. You knew a lot had to go right to win this game, right? First off, you had to shoot well from 3-point range, because if you look at Georgia last week, you shot awful from 3-point range. You weren't good at the free throw line. That's mainly why you lost that game. And you also turned the ball over a ton. And then you get to Arkansas, you shoot 50% from three, and you're actually hitting your free throws, and then you're just playing good ball in general, right? You're playing very well on the defensive end. And I think last night when you got into that Kentucky game, you had guys immediately just unable to miss. They were incapable of such a thing. And like our comment says right here, Jacoby Wright was 4 for 4 to start the night from 3-point range. Just any shot he took, string music. It was green bean, perfect, just every time. Doesn't matter where he was at. But then the rest of the guys, I mean, Talon Cooper had a huge night. He went 8 for 11, had 20 points, and then we'll talk about the other guys that kind of stepped up. But since we're talking about shooting and stuff, I mean, just the guys that you needed to hit shots, it just felt like they were incapable of missing at one point in the second half. And it's like, is this real? Like, Kentucky's the team that is one of the highest scoring offenses in the country. 91.5 points a game is nothing to slouch about at all. And the fact that South Carolina's defense held them to 62 points, and then on top of that, you're hitting almost, I'm not going to say every shot you hit, every shot you take, but it felt like that, right? Because you had so many good looks and you almost shot 50% from the field overall. So, I mean, it was insane. And then you just out rebound Kentucky. You played, and it's not even a stat. It's just the fact that they played so much more physical. They played bully ball against this Kentucky team. And coming in, I think one of the questions I had personally, I'm sure a lot of other people also did, Joe, was, Kentucky's got 3 guys that are 7 feet tall, and you got Mr. Big Z that is 7'2" from Croatia, played one game this year, but he's a freshman. He's super hyped up. Who the hell is going to guard this guy? And Lord behold, Josh Gray, at a moment's notice, hasn't been good this year. Or I shouldn't say that. He hasn't been great this year, I think. He's been a little underwhelming. After coming off such a good year last year where he was a really good rebounder and just a big time starter for this team. Hasn't been kind of the season he wanted, and I think he could probably tell you that too. But overall, last night, he did his work. Him, Colin Murray Boyles, BJ Mack, they ate up in the paint. Let's call it for what it is. They had a great game in the paint and made, quick work of those big guys for Kentucky and really did what they had to do. So I just think it was going to take a lot to go right in this game to win, but when just everything's clicking, man, I think this team is like, that's what you're going to get on a daily basis. And I just think, this is a way, way different team from last year. And then people I've talked to, it's just, I don't think anyone was really expecting this to kind of happen this year. I think, I don't know, just at first, I thought maybe, okay, well, they're picked to finish bottom of the SEC. They'll probably finish maybe like around that 11 or 12 mark. Well, I mean, right now, I think they're maybe like 5th or 6th in the SEC, and we'll see if they can keep it up. But this is definitely the signature win of the season, if there has been one.
Yeah, at least so far, right? I think South Carolina did a great job in the second half of, slowing Kentucky down on the defensive end and on the offensive end, both sides of the floor, really. We were able to just get them out of rhythm, right? We kind of saw that happen to South Carolina at Alabama, right? They got out of rhythm in that second half and then just couldn't generate as many points and, just open looks on the offensive end. You were out of sync. And when you're on the road like that, it gets even harder. So, shout out to South Carolina for being able to just, keep the foot on the gas pedal in that second half, finding open looks. There were a lot of good things in transition that you like too. But Jack, you brought up Josh Gray. Out of all of that, the horse is back, man. Like the legend of the horse mask continues to live on. He had a great game off the bench. We talked about it, leading up to this game, that he was going to have to be one of the bigger big men's of, kind of off the bench. CMB can't do it all rebounding wise. Neither can BJ Mack. So, Gray had to be able to come off the bench and disrupt the game, really. Get boards, blocks, shots, score the basketball when he needs to. He finished with 9 points, 6 rebounds, 5 on the defensive end, 1 rebound. That's, disrupting the game, I would say. And just, he's been so great off the bench, and you need him to continue to play like that. Obviously you still have Tennessee, and they look really good. You've got Dalton Connect, who looks really, really, really good for the Vols. So a lot of good big men still left to be played, but this was a very, very big win for South Carolina. And you look at the team too, Jack. I think one of the biggest things right now for this team is that, Lamont talked about it in his presser too, and I'm going to try to pull it up here in a second, but he mentioned, the guys going out on campus the other day, handing out tickets, and just a very, very likable group. I think that, stems from the coach embracing the quarter zip thing. I've got mine on clearly, for this. So very likable group, very easy to like. That win obviously washes away the memory of Georgia as well. I think that's big, but it's hard not to like Michi Johnson, BJ Mack, Stephen Clark was even out there on campus recruiting. CMB is a very likable kid as well. So, this basketball team is fun. They're playing good basketball. They're moving it, right. Jacoby Wright as well. He's a testament of what this offense has been. Lamont mentioned it as well. I'll bring up that clip, just kind of letting the offense hoop, right? These guys trust each other to make shots. And you're seeing that with the ball movement. They're finding open looks again, which is the biggest thing. And then trusting each other to make them is the biggest thing. And then when you can do that down the stretch continuously through a game, again, you don't have the option of letting off the gas, really.
Absolutely. I think everything you just said goes right back to the culture. And I don't really like to talk about culture and stuff because at the end of the day, it comes down to results, right? You're judged on wins and losses, but the camaraderie and the culture and chemistry that this team has all goes back to Lamont Paris. Like, let's just think about it. Like, imagine they didn't take that trip to the Bahamas, right? I feel like you could say this team might not be as close as they are, but they keep talking about it. That trip to the Bahamas, I feel like, was huge for all the success they're having this year. And it has nothing to do with their play on the court. It's just, this is a tight group, and you can tell just based off of everything. Like, when I heard the other day that they were out handing flyers and stuff, I'm thinking, like, what is this, a club basketball team or something trying to get their name out? Like, this is South Carolina basketball. This is like varsity level basketball that we're talking about. You don't need to do all that, but they did it anyway, and they're having fun doing it. So, it goes deeper beyond the numbers, but it's hard to overlook or understate just how important it is to have a tight unit, especially when you're winning. That's kind of the catalyst behind everything. So.
Yeah, absolutely. When you can win in Pack-In Arena like you did, like Colonial Life on Tuesday night, it sparks a lot of things, right? It helps with positive momentum going into road tests for the rest of the year. Offensively, when you look that good, you can look back at it and say, hey, we, especially after struggles too, right? This team knows that they can flush it. There's been proven results where they flushed it and then came back with a clear mindset and then dominated. So I think this team has what it takes to make the tournament, especially beating a team like Kentucky. And a win like that, Jack, it wasn't close. They pulled away. They had control the entire second half. Kentucky, nibbled back a little bit. But, as soon as that happened, South Carolina caught a couple breaks, couple of stoppages, whatnot, and then we're able to turn the tide from there. Just complete win is my biggest thing from this one. Just from front to back, it's exactly what you want to see for a ball club, in the midst of SEC play and then heading towards the tournament coming up in March.
Yeah, this was definitely the win this team needed to have. because up to this point they were 15-3 coming into this game. They let's just say it. They didn't really have that. Like I said before, the signature win that they needed. Yeah, they beat Grand Canyon and Virginia Tech. I mean, that's nothing insane. But when you beat a team like Kentucky, who is, like I said, 91.5 points per game, they're number 6 in the country. That's going to get attention, and don't be surprised if this team ends up getting ranked on Monday in the next 8 people. I think voters, you probably, people ask, South Carolina hasn't gotten a ton of votes. Why is that? Well, I think it's because they've been missing that sort of marquee win that they need, that quad one win, if you will. And now they have 2 quad one wins. So I think it's hard to overlook that. And I think because of that, these AP voters have more than enough reason to potentially slot South Carolina into that discussion for an AP for being on the AP ballot. But beyond that, look, even if they don't get ranked, it's not the end of the world. I mean, rankings don't mean anything right now. It's not like you won a championship or something by doing so. It's the ultimate end goal is to get to the tournament, right? That is what matters. And it doesn't matter if you're first or 68th. You made it, and that is something to definitely not hang your head on. But I think that it should be the goal. And look, I mean, this team gives me no reason to believe that they're not, satisfied. I mean, they are happy with that Kentucky win, but obviously they know there's still 12 games to go in this SEC slate, and that they have more to prove. I mean, they're not done yet, and I think that's definitely something that is reassuring about this group.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. So here's the clip from Lamont. We're going to try to play it. You guys got to let us know, Jack, if you can hear this. But here's Lamont talking about the belief. Do you hear this?
No, unfortunately, I cannot.
No. Let me get it. All right. So we'll go back to that. But Jack, the belief. I mean, obviously you could feel the belief in the building. As that game kind of progressed. Sometimes we've seen South Carolina teams. I mean, even in this season, the Georgia game, they just kind of lost it there at the end. How did the belief from the crowd, kind of stem and work its way, into the players and into the game?
I just think the crowd was almost relentless all night. They just, like I said before, every single shot that South Carolina made, the place went nuts, especially on 3-pointers, man. Like when Jacoby was hitting those threes, and I think Michi hit a really deep 3, and Zach Davis hit a 3 right before the buzzer. Just the place went nuts. And then every single thing that Kentucky did wrong, they'd miss a shot, goes insane. They pick up a foul, gets loud, just any little thing, and they were breathing down Kentucky's neck. I feel like, and I feel like Kentucky didn't respond well to that type of pressure, and it just really says something about home court advantage, man. These fans, look, when we've talked about it earlier, Joe, when this team is winning, everyone's on board, everyone's on the bandwagon, but obviously when this team's losing, I mean, we saw it last year. Wasn't like this. Wasn't like this at all. And I'm not trying to, stir up any pots or anything, but just saying that, when this team is winning, everyone's on board, and it's like it's pandemonium in here. So I think South Carolina's got a good thing going right now, and they just need to keep finding ways to sustain this the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think, ultimately what it stems to is offensively just playing their brand of basketball, staying within themselves, not trying to chase a lead necessarily. I mean, if you're going after a lead, go for it. But, just keeping the foot, on the pedal too, even if you're not having the best shooting night, knowing that, the defense, and we'll get to the defense here, like we'll transition into the defense a little bit here. I think if they continue to play as good of defense as, they have all year, there are some clips about John Calipari talking about, South Carolina on the defensive end being one of the best teams in the SEC on the defensive end. I think if you can keep that up, you'll be able to, have your identity offensively, whether you're making shots or not, right? Because if you're getting defensive stops, forcing turnovers, even on the road too, I think on the road, it's most important to force turnovers, kind of take the crowd out of it. Points off turnovers from that. But Jack, defensively, this team is really, really, really good. What are you seeing from them?
They played. It starts with physicality. I think just while they might have not had the same length as Kentucky, they made up for it with playing aggressive and just getting to the rim and making rebounds. I think that was the difference. And you saw guys like Josh Gray, Colin Murray Boyles had that insane. He dunked on. I think it was Big Z that he dunked on from Kentucky, and then BJ Mack eating up in the paint too. That's what stands out to me on the defensive end, but also with shot selection. Kentucky, as we keep saying, Kentucky, one of the better scoring teams in the country. It felt like every shot that team took was a extremely difficult one. It's like having you're playing NBA 2K and it's like the mode's being set on the hardest level and you just can't hit a shot. That's kind of what it reminded me of, is just Kentucky was out of sync. And yeah, they hit some shots at times, but for the most part in that game, I mean, there's a reason they were trailing for more than, I think, 29 minutes of that game. Is just when they had opportunities to score, they just couldn't do so. And that comes down to South Carolina, which continues to preach good defense, locking down and proving. I mean, John Calipari said himself, this is the best SEC defense in conference. So I think that's a really good statement that you want to hear. I think the players were kind of happy, and Lamont was too, about hearing that from Coach Cal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, all opposing coaches that have come into Colonial Life where it was bumping, and we go back to Coach Shrewsbury's comment, but Coach Cal was very complimentary of the environment. And that's coming from a coach. Jamie Shaw brought it up on my show on Sunday that, Kentucky brings the best out of everyone. So, that environment isn't necessarily new to them. But being able to, continue, South Carolina didn't necessarily use the atmosphere to affect Kentucky. They used it more to their own advantage and to get them going. I think that was the biggest thing, right? Because again, a team like Kentucky, they've seen atmospheres like that. Everyone brings their best. Everyone wants to come out and beat Kentucky. But with Michi Johnson, BJ Mack, Studi's hurt, but he was also supporting on the bench. But Talon Cooper, those guys, what they're doing is simply using the crowd to feed it. You obviously need that atmosphere from here on out. They've got Missouri on Saturday. I'm assuming that place will be rocking for that. As compared to what Missouri was a couple years ago, I can't imagine there would be a whole lot of people in that crowd compared to now. Expect a lot of folks to make it out to Colonial Life on Saturday. Jack, what any other takeaways from this game? I mean, pretty much talked about all of it.
Yeah, I think
any players that stood out?
I mean, like I said before, I think just everyone got a piece of the pie, I think, last night. Everyone that played, at least. I think everyone honestly had a good night. I mean, Stephen Clark had a nice, dunk on a nice pass. I forget who it was, maybe Michi Johnson. Another thing I will say is that you really did, we talk about defense. Forgot to mention this. They held Kentucky in check most of that. I think coming into that game, Kentucky had maybe 6 guys that were averaging double digits this season, and that includes Big Z with his one game. But I mean, last night, you look at guys like Antonio Reeves, 6 of 18, 15 points. You get a guy off the bench. The only one that really stood out yesterday was Rob Dillingham. He went 7 of 14 and had 16 points. But outside of that, I mean, you have a guy like DJ Wagner, 2 of 10, 4 points. Bradshaw, he had 8 rebounds, but he had 4 points. And then Mitchell, 5 of 8, 13 points. I mean, for the most part, when you hold a team to 40% shooting, that is really a really good scoring team. I think that just says a lot, and I think that's ultimately what did win the game last night. But outside of that, I mean, I think every guy that played for South Carolina last night had some sort of impact. I mean, you look at Michi hitting the really deep three, Talon Cooper scoring a team high 20 points, Zach Davis hitting the shot right before the buzzer, BJ Mack hit a few threes and had a lot of rebounds. Colin Murray Boyles had that big dunk. Josh Gray had 9 points and 6 rebounds. Had some really good dunks. Stephen Clark, like I said, big dunk. Morris Ugasuk played 5 minutes, but he didn't really do much. And he was out there and helped the team. And then Jacoby Wright, as we all know, had 4 threes. So everyone did everything they had to do last night, and it comes down to playing as a collective unit. And I mean, hey, South Carolina is looking really strong right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are the traits you want of a team to go deep into the postseason. Obviously their tournament, at large bid, status is pretty good right now. That's a signature win. That's really, really, really good on the resume when you get to March in terms of the selection show. Jack, obviously this team has what it takes to get there. I don't want to get too far ahead, knock on wood here, right? Because it's only early January. But a hypothetical hat, like, could this team, make it further than the first round, second round? Like, is this bare bones like what this team is at? Could they make it further?
If they play like they did last night, yeah, I can see it. Look, all right.
Yeah,
So
you
my
gotta play like you did.
yeah, and whenever these sort of hypothetical questions come up, I always think back to when we spoke about Omaha last year, and things ended up not working out. So
It's true.
I'm trying to be
Played as a
cautious.
wise. Yes,
learning
yeah.
our
We can't
lessons.
get too far ahead of ourselves.
But hypothetically speaking, to answer your question, Joe, I would say right now they're in a good shape to make the tournament. Right?
Yes.
I don't know where exactly they're sitting at in bracketology or whatever. I know they're up in the net rankings, and maybe they'll be in the AP top 25 on Monday. Those are all good signs to being towards a tournament team for March Madness. I think I keep saying it. I think you have 12 games left. If you win half of them, you're at 22 wins and I think 9 losses heading into the SEC tournament. That's already better than what I probably forecasted, saying that they need probably 20 to 21 wins. And you lose about, a few more of your games in SEC play than you win. And then you go into Nashville, you win a game or two, and, you're potentially looking at 23, 24 wins and maybe on the bubble. But right now, I think they're top 5 in the SEC. I think you need to be a top 4 seed to have a bye in the SEC tourney, and by then, all you need to do is win one game, and you're already in the SEC semifinals, and that in itself is more than enough to get in. I think if you're one of those top 4 teams that makes it to Saturday in Nashville, you probably deserve to be in because I think this is one of the harder conferences in college basketball. But to answer your real question about where we think this team could go after that, if they make March,
what's the ceiling? What is the realistic ceiling for this team?
The ceiling, if I had to guess, I'm going to say they're probably somewhere between a 7 to 10 seed in March Madness right now. If they keep it up, I think that's ultimately where they're going to end up. There's always a chance they could be like playing in that first 4 round out in Dayton, for all we know.
Yeah.
But I do think if it is the right night and they're clicking, they can win a game or two. I think I don't want to say at the most. I think this team, with the experience they have, and some guys actually playing in the tournament, they definitely have a shot to do some damage. But right now, it all depends. That's what it comes down to. If they're hot, you'll see it like they did last night. That's how they play. But if they're cold, just go look back at Georgia and Alabama. It's a very up and down kind of thing. But if they do find some consistency and strike lightning at one point, find lightning in a bottle, they can definitely win a few games, I think. But we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Craig brings it up. The defense we play gives us a chance against anyone. Absolutely. Absolutely. You lock down the highest scoring offense, or one of the highest scoring offenses in college basketball, at least in the Power 5 sense. So really, really good defensive effort last night. I think that proves, Craig's point. Like, if you play like that against anybody, you can beat anybody. Because that team looked so in sync coming in here. Looked really, really good on the offensive end. And then, again, Talon Cooper locking things down at the point, starts at the top. And then they also did a good job. Shout out to all the post players, role players that got in and were able to keep a consistent presence in the point or in the paint. 9 minutes from 9 minutes from Stephen Clark, 11 minutes from Josh Gray. We talked about those guys. But yeah, huge minutes from those guys. Gil says, if you're Miles Studi, you're trying to get back from injury ASAP. Absolutely. Yeah. You're doing as much as you can. Obviously, you want a healthy Miles Studi. I think if you plug him into last night's game, you beat him by more, right? I don't think he's that, a liability on the defensive end or anything like that. Matchup wise, I don't know if Studi, hurts you, right? Having him in the lineup one way or another. And having his 3-point presence certainly could have helped last night. Sure, it could have gone the other way. Shooting goes either way, but I agree. I think, Gil, you need Miles Studi back. And, to beat Kentucky like you did without him really shows, how good this team can be at the bare bones of it, right?
Yeah, this team is just, I think, is crazy. I think about what could have happened if Miles Studi was out there. And again, that's one of the things that people have to think about. South Carolina did all this. They won by 17 points without Miles Studi. That's kind of crazy. That's one of your starters right there. That's not like some bench warmer that doesn't play. He plays a lot of minutes for this team, guys, and South Carolina looked just fine without him. Do they want it? Do they need him back? Absolutely, absolutely. Who wouldn't want to have Miles Studi back? That's a guy with years of experience, veteran leader, plays hard basketball, and is more beneficial to the team than not. But yeah, just I think when this team is at full strength and everything, again, it takes a lot of stuff to go right. Defensively, I agree. I think the defense is what carries this team right now. That's their MO. But at some point or another, you have to hit shots to win games. And luckily, this team can shoot the three-pointer pretty well most of the time. There's going to be some nights where it's off, and they might have another bad loss here or there. But obviously, you want to avoid that to get into the tournament or whatever. But what was I saying? Yeah, I think when the cylinders are clicking and rolling, then they are a very hard team to beat. And we'll see what happens. But I think right now you got to be real happy as a Carolina fan if you are a Carolina fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Lynn says, and with Michi and Josh Gray in early foul trouble. Yeah, absolutely. I think she's referencing Craig. Yeah, Jacoby picked up the slack for Studi. Absolutely. Shout out to Jacoby Wright. He has been all that and more for South Carolina, coming off the bench. A guy that stuck around after last year. We saw a couple of role players dip out. We've talked about this with Jacoby Wright. Decides to, stay at South Carolina, stick through the mud, essentially, and just, be a player for South Carolina, a much needed force on the offensive and defensive end, a combo guard. He's really, really, really playing well. And, you need guys like that, right? You can't have your starting five be, your whole team. To have Jacoby Wright, Josh Gray, Stephen Clark, again, come off the bench like you did, have an impact, disrupt the game. I think it's the biggest, advantage in the world. And when you have them all playing in sync too, in this part of the schedule, right? You hope they don't run out of gas. Got to get through February. Got to keep it up. But again, we go back to the defense. If you can play defense the way you have been, everything will lead off of that. Generating turnovers, everything else. But Jack, yeah, I know we talked about Jacoby Wright a little bit earlier, but what can we say anything else better about him?
Hey, shout out Fort Mill. Shout out Fort Mill. Jacoby and I went to the same high school, I think once upon a time out of Fort Mill. So shout out Jacoby. What can you say? This kid is he's really he's one of the guys that's been around through thick and thin. I think he was here when Frank Martin was here as a freshman in 2021. Which was a weird year. And then he had the option to leave if he wanted to, but he decided to, stay and buy into what Lamont Paris is preaching. And it's working out well for him because last year he was mainly like a sixth man on this team, first guy off the bench. And he had some big moments. I think he had some nice big shots that he hit in good games. But now this year, you're seeing him take the next step forward. And yeah, he's not a consistent starter. Yeah, he's like the first guy off the bench still, but he's making the most of his minutes, man. He still plays roughly 20 to 25 minutes a game. And I think with Miles Studi out, you're kind of seeing him and Zach Davis be that 1A, 1B kind of combo that fills that void of all those minutes Studi left on the floor. But yeah, when he gets going, he's got a nice stroke, nice shot. And when he hits, he's on. What can you say? Just another big night for him, and he's been a real catalyst in making this team get to where it's at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Gil brings up, can we hang on to Lamont Paris if we get to dance in Paris year number 2? Really believe that we will. Blue-blooded deep pockets will come after Coach Paris. She follows up with, I'm a Gamecock. We have to worry about these things even as we celebrate. Yeah, I understand that. Absolutely. Being in South Carolina, not being a traditional blue blood, seeing how Lamont's done a complete 180 with the program, just kind of picking up the pieces. I definitely understand the concern, but I think Coach Paris wants to be here, build a program here. It's the ceiling is higher than a tournament bid year 2, especially if they can get deep into the tournament, and also the players that he's recruiting. Eli Ellis is a lot to look forward to. So he wants to build a program at a Power 5 level, and especially how the game is changing with the transfer portal. I think that's even more incentive to make your culture and build a program and establish your roots at a place to where transfers can come in, pick up right where other guys left off, and be able to be in the system and make it work. So Gil, I understand the concern, but I personally don't think Lamont is going anywhere. Obviously you have some negotiating to do, but you kind of have to trust that Lamont will be here. Craig Godwin says, what if we had Cam Scott too? Yeah, Cam Scott is currently signed with the University of Texas, unfortunately. Unless there's a coach firing at Texas, I don't think Cam Scott will revoke that signing. But again, it's something to keep an eye on, right, with the transfer portal. Depending on how Cam does at Texas, he's a South Carolina kid, so obviously you wish him the best. But I don't think the door is necessarily closed quite yet in terms of down the road. Now, in terms of him coming to South Carolina next year, yeah, I mean, unless Rodney Terry gets fired, I don't think Cam will be coming to South Carolina this next year. But again, something to keep in mind further down the road. We've got 37 minutes. Pretty good. You want to hit some ads before we, keep talking about the Gamecocks?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, our first ad of the day is our good friends over at Liberty Tax. Tax IDs, that uncertain feeling you get right before doing your taxes, but you don't have to go through it alone. The tax team at Liberty Tax in Irmo, Lexington, and Columbia will walk you through the process, clear up any confusion, and guarantee you'll get the biggest possible refund or your money back. It's tax time. If you're in a hurry for your refund, call the tax team at Liberty Tax. They are fast, accurate, and guaranteed. If you think you might be owing Uncle Sam, call the tax team at Liberty Tax. Give them a call, 803-462-5576. Once again, 803-462-5576 for all of your tax needs. Our other sponsor for today's action on GC Live is our good friend Clint Hammond. You can call him. The number is above you and on all of our Gamecock Central Live programming, 803-771-6933. Once again, 803-771-6933. He's even helped out our very own Wes Mitchell and former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth with their mortgages. Clint's the best, so give him a call. Again, he's above us on all of our Gamecock Central Live programming, so that is a lot of fun. That's our good friend Clint Hammond over at the Movement Mortgage Network. So Gil says, how about CMB? Number 30, some of those assists were amazing. At least 2 of those for 3 or star from Rock Hill. He's an SC kid like Zach Davis, who was outstanding on defense, big 3 at half. Yeah, CMB's been playing lights out so far. Jack, walk me through what you're seeing from the true freshman.
Yeah, just I'm telling y'all, ever since Stephen Clark and Lamont Paris both agreed that, hey, maybe it's time. It's time to unleash the freshman, man. He has really stepped up, and I think you're seeing just a difference in energy. And look, I mean, he's a freshman, but I don't think he's scared of the bright lights, man. Now, he's not the kind of guy that's not yet, at least. I mean, yeah, he had maybe one game where he was really on in terms of shooting, getting 17 points against. I'm looking at the stats against Florida A&M back in December, which feels so long ago. But since SEC play started, I mean, he's been a guy that hasn't been afraid to get in the paint and get dirty with his work. He's getting rebounds over big guys, and he's going right back up. I mean, like I said before, that dunk on Big Z last night it had the building going nuts. So that was awesome. And then hey, I think Lamont talked about it last night because he was asked about CMB. Where he's at right now is not where he's going to be in the future. If he sticks around here after this season and continues to play at South Carolina, his potential is this is far from where he will be. He's going to be a special kid on this team if he continues to play here or wherever he goes in the future. Just he's got a lot of talent, and I think he is more than he's giving South Carolina so much good right now that it's hard not to play him as much as they have. So he is a breath of fresh air, I think, for this team, and adds the youthful factor that they need without being afraid of the spotlight. I think he thrives in this kind of energy.
Yeah, 29 minutes, 9 boards, 6 points, 3 blocks, 2 steals. You can't ask for more from a freshman in that spot and in one of the biggest games of the year, right? He's been a stud ever since getting back from mono. He was the projected starter. He's been really, 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 really good. Rock Hill kid as well. So, a lot to like about CMB. He's one of the, building blocks of, kind of this program in my mind, because, right, he's the example of what you can do as a freshman. Obviously, G.G. Jackson is showing what you can do at the next level and kind of through the development thing. But CMB is showing, what you can do when, you come in, play your role and play it, to the fullest potential, give it everything that you have. You're going to find success. And that's what CMB is doing. So that's the biggest thing. He's been so good for you. You hope that he's going to continue to be, as we know he will be. So that's big. CMB, one of the bigger players. And again, it takes a lot to do that as a true freshman. So that's huge. RL says, I looked at the list of SEC coaches contracts in 2023 and Paris at the very bottom. An SEC tournament win. NCAA appearance should get him a raise to $3.5 million a year to get him to the middle of the pack. Yeah, absolutely. At the very least, right? I think, Ray Tanner in the athletics office, there's certainly they know how much of an impact that this run is having. And Lamont knows that, it certainly will play into a raise as well. So, I think everyone kind of understands the impact of, a good men's basketball team. And when it comes time to talk about raises and stuff, I would assume that Ray Tanner will keep things close to home and extend Lamont with a pretty good salary as well.
Yeah. I think I saw something last night, and I might be wrong on this, but I think with what RL is saying is that Paris is at the bottom of the list, and I think Coach Cal he has to be, right? He has to be the highest paid coach in the SEC. It's crazy, right? I mean, look, it's just one game, but the fact that Lamont Paris I don't know if I want to say out-coached, because I want to be careful with my words here, but the way Lamont had, it was just crazy to see how much better South Carolina played than Kentucky. It's almost like Kentucky they have all the talent, but they just didn't have a good game plan for South Carolina. They were just getting bullied, like I said, in the paint. And it's crazy to think about when you have three 7-foot guys. It's nuts. And you have all the talent, all the stars. And South Carolina, it took, G.G. Jackson last year was South Carolina's first 5-star commit. And then you get Colin Murray-Boyles, who is the highest rated freshman under Lamont Paris. So you're not getting all these big blue chip kind of guys, but you're getting guys that are, you gotta go search a little harder for them. And that's why they ended up with guys like Talon Cooper and Miles Studi and BJ Mack and Stephen Clark that other coaches might have overlooked and thought nothing of. So yeah, and hey, so far so good for Lamont Paris. He's owned this little rivalry with Kentucky so far, 2-0. I mean, he was able to do it year one on the road. That was his signature win last year, and not many thought he could do it. And then last night, he does it again. Just proves. I mean, hey, maybe something's brewing here. Maybe there's something good going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you would think so. And I mean, we're getting a couple of recruiting questions real quick. Big Red, he's not listed in the On3 database, so I don't know. I would assume not. What we've got is who is committed. So update on that. And then Joe asks, do y'all still think Eli Ellis a hard commit still? Yes, absolutely. I think, in this run, this year's team certainly helps solidify that, right? As far as you can go. Mizu Johnson certainly helps that, right? Having a 3-point shooting guard, have success in this offense helps. So yeah, I think Eli Ellis is a hard commit, and then they also have ties with the program. His dad and Lamont are close, so I would expect Eli Ellis to remain at South Carolina unless something crazy happens. But yeah, Jay Diz says Coach Paris is 2-0 versus Kentucky. Yeah, it's a good sign. It's a good sign, right? If Lamont's team that he can beat every year is Kentucky, all power to it, right? Brady had his downfalls in Eli. So if Lamont Paris can be John Calipari's Eli Manning, obviously you want to beat him a little bit more than Eli beat Brady. But yeah, that would be huge. But yeah, Jack, anything else before we wrap things up?
No, not really. Just what a fun night of basketball, man. It's good to be covering a team that is a surprise to say the least. I think this is it's caught a lot of people off guard, and I think the one thing you got to think about is the comment earlier about what if Lamont leaves or something. Or think about the tournament. I think just enjoy the moment right now, and just no, don't worry about what is down the road, because I think that's the wrong way to look at this thing. Enjoy. If you're a South Carolina fan, enjoy good basketball, because the last time I think this town really got it was maybe the Final Four run. So I just enjoy it for what it is, and go game by game and see where things go. I think it's a lot.
Absolutely, and plenty more basketball left to be played. We will still be here covering both teams. Obviously, the focus is a little bit more on the men's team. The women's team is still dominating as usual, and we'll get to that. We'll have Jonathan Hampton back on to check in, and Chris Wellbaum as well to check in about our women's team. But that will do it, for us at GC Live, the Hard Fowl. We will talk to you guys again next week. Check out my show, The Walkthrough, coming out on Sunday nights. And as always, enjoy the rest of your guys' week.